So let's start. Hello and welcome to this session. My name is Carsten Rachfal. I'm from Germany. You may hear that. I'm a Microsoft Cloud and Data Center MVP and also a regional director in Germany. And today I want to talk about nested virtualization, a game changer in Hyper-V and Azure. So before I tell you more about it, I want to start a demo because I always challenge myself and do crazy things in presentations. So I want to deploy a 2-node Storage Spaces Direct Hyper-converged cluster in nested virtualization. And I have only 15 minutes for that. So let's start. So here I'm on this notebook. It's a big one because it has a lot of hardware, 64 gigabytes of RAM, some NVMEs, and I just start a PowerShell script here. And it will start, I cross my fingers that everything went well, and in around 15 minutes, at least this is a plan, we can look at a completely deployed Storage Spaces Direct hyper-converged 2-node cluster, and then we will talk about that. So what is nested virtualization, or why am I so excited about nested virtualization? Because I'm a consultant, I have to play with all the infrastructure stuff. So we do Hyper-V, we do clustering, we do storage, we do Azure Stack, Azure Pack, and so on. And if you want to play with those things, you need a lot of hardware. For example, for a Hyper-V cluster, if it's a cluster, it's at least 2 nodes and you have a central storage system. And my problem is I have to buy a lot of hardware to play with that. And nested virtualization is really a game changer here for me, because if I have one box with enough memory, a bit CPU, I can do all in one box. So here you see in this example on the right side, you see how I deploy the Azure Stack development kit in one virtual machine. And it uses Hyper-V. So you see on the left, I don't know if I can show it to you, you see the virtual machine, and in the virtual machine there are other virtual machines running. So if you look at that picture, you see the hypervisor with the Azure Stack POC2 machine. In the middle, where the red arrow is going, you see the console of this machine, and then you see another Hyper-V manager with multiple VMs in it. And we have even the Azure Stack admin portal in one machine. So you are now able, if you don't have the beefy hardware that is required for the Azure Stack development kit with different disks and so on, you can do it in virtualization, in nested virtualization. Another example, I do a lot of Storage Spaces Direct, and as I do here, this is a 4-node deployment on this machine where you really can start VMs in nested virtualization and play with Storage Spaces Direct. And that's, I think, very cool. So let's talk about some nested basics. First, what is nested, or how does it look like? So I think most of you know Hyper-V, or a virtualization platform, so you have some hardware. Your hardware has CPU, memory, disk, and so on. And then you install Windows Server 2016 on it. And this would be the normal use case if you use Exchange on top of it, or SQL Server. It's a hardware box with an application. If we do virtualization, we add Hyper-V to the system, so we add the Hyper-V role, and our Windows Server is now the management OS, and you see one guest VM there. You can have multiple guest VMs, of course. This is the virtualization you know, and that I do for years, maybe nearly 10 years I do Hyper-V, just from the beginning. So if we now install in the guest VM Windows Server 2016 and enable Hyper-V, we have nested virtualization. So now, again, Hyper-V in a virtual machine, our management OS is now on the side, and we can do virtual machines inside of this VM. And you see, we have a level 0 for the hardware, we have a level 1 for our real hypervisor on the hardware, and the level 2 for our nested hypervisor and the virtual machines. But this is not the end of the story. You can again install Hyper-V in the guest VM. You have your management OS, and you can install VMs in that. Of course, there is a price. You lose performance. So with every layer, you lose a bit of performance. And we talk about performance later on another slide. But this is a concept. Yeah? I usually don't go beyond level 2, but you could do that. So supported platforms for a nested Hyper-V. Of course, Windows Server 2016. With RTM of Windows Server 2016, nearly a year ago, you have the capability to use nested virtualization. And I do it a lot. And it has production support. So if you do nested virtualization, you have support from Microsoft. It's not only for test and development. You can really do it and have production support. On the other side, we have Azure. Azure now supports nested virtualization for some virtual machine sizes. And I talk about the different virtual machine sizes later, but you can do it in Azure. And it gives me the opportunity. I'm an old infrastructure as a service guy. So I do cluster, I do storage replication, I do backup of my hypervisors with change block tracking. This is all not possible in Azure with the normal things. Yeah? But with nested virtualization, it is my hypervisor, so I can use my backup software of my choice and back up my hypervisors. So I think this is a very nice use case. And we talk about Azure also a little bit later. And then there is the third one. If you have Windows 10, the client operating system, with the anniversary update, also again over a year ago, you can do nested with Windows 10. Hyper-V is possible with Windows 10, and you can do nested. And on this machine, in the moment, I have started a Windows Server 2016 because this is an English installation. I've also Windows 10 on the box, and it is German, so I didn't want to show you the German Windows 10, but all I'm doing here is also working on a Windows box. So you don't have to install server on your machine to play with nested virtualization. You can do it with Windows 10. Some nested scenarios. What can we do with nested? Of course, we can play around. Yes, but what are maybe better use cases for it? New training possibilities. I do a Hyper-V training course for over 5 years now, and we also do Storage Spaces Direct. And when I have 12 attendees for Storage Spaces Direct course, every attendee gets a 4-node cluster, 2 additional nodes. I must have a lot of hardware, and I don't want to buy hardware for $200,000, $300,000 to do the training. So I use nested virtualization for that. I do it on our hypervisors, and I even have done a course in Azure, so where we leverage the Azure nested virtualization. Another use case. If you want to test something in your IT, you maybe have Hyper-V, you have a sound system. You can, for example, deploy Azure Stack, the development kit, if you don't have this beefy box with the 5 disks on an HPA. That's a requirement for the development kit. You have to have HPAs, you have to have a disk on an HPA, not a RAID controller. Not many have that. If you have the possibility to Hyper-V with some virtual disks, you can deploy Azure Stack, development kit, and look at it. Another scenario, great for labs. I was told the Azure Stack labs on Ignite are running in nested virtualization, so Microsoft also is leveraging that. You have study opportunities. As a consultant, I can build everything in this box and play with it. It's great, but I talked about that already. Disaster. Many of my customers have one production solution, and you are maybe a little bit afraid of every second Tuesday in the month. You get some patches, and you're thinking, should I install it? Will something go wrong? If you build up your environment in nested virtualization, you can patch it, you can test it. If something goes wrong, you can build it up from scratch. Another scenario, Hyper-V containers. If you are interested in containers, Hyper-V containers require nested virtualization. And they are, in fact, the reason why Microsoft built nested virtualization. You need the Hyper-V container is in a small Hyper-V machine, so it's completely isolated. It has the best security. Yeah? We have other pre-stage environments, update testing and so on. The disaster scenario was when I have HA. Maybe I want to test my HA scenario. What are you doing today if you test your disaster recovery? You play a little bit with your hardware, but you will never destroy a host. With nested virtualization, you can really destroy it and look how your HA is working. Is it working? Because your disaster recovery is for a hurricane is coming to Orlando and something will happen. You will never test that. You will not shoot your Hyper-V boxes and say, or burn them. That with nested virtualization, you can do that. Next scenario, I talked about that already. You can really build all the classic infrastructure as a service scenarios in Azure with nested virtualization. Performance. We talked a bit, there is a performance impact, and I have done some measurements. So I used CPU mark. On this box, I have a benchmark VM that is running as a VM on Hyper-V, and it has some numbers here, and I put the same VM into a nested hypervisor. And we only lose 2% with CPU performance. That's nothing. So CPU-wise, we have not really an impact. Another thing would be storage. What about storage? So I did some storage tests with IO meter, and these are the numbers on my host. He has NVMEs, so the numbers are really great. 85,000 8K IOPS, read and write, fantastic. And if I put it in nested, we have 45,000. So here is an impact. It's in this scenario 22%. I did it with other scenarios, so I saw 10 to 25%. Your impact is somewhere between that. But for me, it's still acceptable with all the advantages I gain from nested virtualization. So what about networking? You have now VMs in VMs, and you want to communicate with the outside world. And there is another layer there. So you have two options. You can enable MAC address spoofing on the Hyper-V VM. So the VM that is running Hyper-V, where the VMs are in, you can enable MAC address spoofing, and then you can do any inbound and outbound traffic. Yeah? But this option is only available in Hyper-V, not in Azure. In Azure, you can't turn on MAC address spoofing on the host. That's not possible. So in Azure, you have to use a NUTting switch, a Hyper-V NUTting switch, and outbound, your VMs can communicate with all the world. That's not a problem. The problem is inbound traffic. So you maybe have a web server running in your nested Azure hypervisor, and then you have to enable NUT inbound routes. Like you do it if you have a NUT router from your ISP, it's the same concept. It's possible, but you have to enable the inbound rules for NUTting. So port 80 is forwarded to this VM. Yeah? You know the concept. Nested in Azure. So as of mid-December, I don't know if we had new announcements here, new VM sizes, but as of December we had these options. We had the DV3 series, and it starts with 2 virtual cores and 8 gig. And the biggest one has 64 vCPUs and 256 gigabytes. And then there is the EV3 series. In essence, it has double the RAM. So if you have 2 virtual cores, you have 16 gigabytes. And the biggest one, 64 virtual CPUs and 432 gigabytes. And that's not the end. There's also the M series. These are really huge, and I had the opportunity to play with the M128. It's a machine with 128 virtual CPUs and 2 terabyte RAM. I've not one customer with a Hyper-V box with 2 terabyte of RAM. You can get that in Azure. It's built by the minute. So if you want to play with it, spend some $100 for a week or whatever. They have a price, of course. I put out the prices. I didn't want to shock you. So, and they are available, the DV3 and EV3 are available in Asia, in Europe, and in the US. The M series is only available in East US too. So you have to choose the right data center. We did a training on Azure. We did a training with Storage Spaces Direct. We had 12 attendees who needed 4 Storage Spaces Direct hosts and 4 hypervisors each. And I don't have the hardware for that, even not nested. So we used Azure for that. We deployed 13 E16 v3 VMs with 128 gigabytes of RAM, and I think 4 1 terabyte managed disks for each VM, and did our deployment there. You see a screenshot of all the VMs, and it was quite a success. So we could deliver our session. So let's go back to the demo. I have still 4 minutes left. Fantastic. So let's look how our deployment has done. Oh, it's still going. Unusual. My system has not too much power, so it's slowing down the CPU. But I'm prepared. So this may take another while, but I have another deployment ready for you to show. So you see here on my local hypervisor, I have some virtual machines running. One is the cluster I'm deploying in the moment, and then I have one prepared if something fails. So we are now going to the prepared one. These are also 2 nodes, and I deployed it 2 hours ago. So if we look into this machine, so I'm now in a VM. I have 2 of those, and there is nested enable. So I can put VMs in this VM. And here we have a big VM. It's not so big, it has only 8 gig, but I wanted to show you a live migration from one of those hosts to the other with a VM that is running inside, a nested VM. And to show you the performance, I opened the task manager here, and important are the 3 network adapters. So I'm using SMB3 as a live migration protocol, and it will leverage all 3 adapters in parallel. So this is a failover cluster, you know that, I think. Live migration, best node. We have only one other node. Look at the numbers here. So we have 2.3 gigabyte, 4.1 gigabyte, 3.7 gigabyte, 3 gigabyte. So we are leveraging all 3 adapters, and I'm moving the VM from one host to the other. Yeah? So you have everything you want with Hyper-V. You have live migration, you have storage. You can really play with this stuff. As a consultant, it's heaven. Now I don't have to buy a lot of hardware. I need one big box, and I can try all Microsoft scenarios. If you have Storage Replica, if you have Hyper-V, Hyper-V with Storage Spaces Direct as a storage system, not hyper-converged, you can do nearly everything you want. So let's come back to the presentation, and usually you would have this slide, but of course it's Monday and not everything is ready. You can't scan the code there, but I would love if you search for my session and give me a rating. I want to know how you liked the session. Was it good? Was it bad? Please rate it, and this is the only way where I can be better next time. Okay, thank you for your attendance, and if you have questions, I'll be there and you can ask me anything about Hyper-V. Thank you.